Work it, make it, do it, make sense.
Hi, we're at London in Devoxx UK, and I'm chatting to Matthew, a data scientist who's giving a talk later about R and data visualizations. So I want to ask you about some concepts instead of asking you about your talk, if that's okay. So we chatted about data science on Voxxed and about what that involves. And I wondered if there was what the first thing you encountered when you were studying data science was.
The first thing that I encountered, well, I started studying data science back at Iowa State University. I was working on double degrees in computer science and philosophy with a minor in economics, and I found that I had a tremendous interest working with data. I guess I kind of have to take a step back and mention that I was also a professional software developer for several years before I went back to college to essentially get my computer science degrees and finish up a few other degrees as well. So while I was there, I found that I was very interested in working with data. I found that the machine learning and the artificial intelligence focus of my degree was the most interesting parts of what I was doing. So I really wanted to essentially become a data scientist or data science consultant, but this is before the term data scientist even existed. So as soon as I got out into the job market again with my new degrees and I started working as a consultant, I read this article that talked about the emergence of data science and the data scientist. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to be doing. So I took my consulting, like developer consulting career and kind of spun it into a data science consulting career instead. So now I do data science consulting, I do education in the data science space, I do a lot of work with R, I'm working with Python as well, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cognitive services, you name it, all the interesting stuff.
What's the most interesting thing that you learn about? I know that's quite a wide question.
Yep.
The most interesting thing you learned when you started on this journey?
Well, when I started on this journey, I think the most interesting thing I learned about was neural networks. I found neural networks tremendously interesting, but at that point in time when I was studying them in college, there were certain limitations to them. We didn't have deep neural networks yet. And so the fact that they were kind of using a very simplified version of our model of the brain was of interest to me. But as they've moved further and further along and we now have hierarchical deep neural networks, they're finding that the models and the way that they do feature extraction and the hierarchical organization seems to be mirroring the way the brain may actually work. So both the neuroscientists and the computer scientists working in very separate spaces seem to be slowly converging, like with the neuroscientists and their predictive coding model of the brain and the data scientists or computer scientists with their deep neural networks. So I find that tremendously interesting.
A new collaboration.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, that's brilliant. So in terms of things that you've learned in neural networks, what is kind of coming up for you in data science? What's the next thing that you need to learn about or you need to keep on top of?
Well, for me, I think the deep neural networks is where the most interesting stuff is happening right now. All of the big breakthroughs in the last few years have all been involving deep neural networks and deep learning of some kind. Prior to that, it was essentially ensemble learning, like when you combined a series of relatively weak classifiers or regression algorithms together and had them kind of do a majority-weighted vote or some kind of aggregation on their predictions. That was very powerful. But now with the deep neural networks, we're seeing breakthroughs in areas that most people thought would be, I think, several years out yet. For example, in the last few years, all of the speech recognition in our mobile phones has gotten really good, and that's because of this latest kind of set of breakthroughs with the deep neural networks. Same thing with computer vision. We've had all sorts of breakthroughs in terms of pattern recognition, object identification, and a whole slew of other video or image-based deep learning. And other areas as well, too, in terms of medicine. Some really interesting breakthroughs in terms of diagnostic medicine, especially with detecting brain cancer with MRIs using deep neural network models and stuff. So very interesting stuff coming out in that space. And I think that's probably where I'm most interested in continuing to study. But as far as the general population, I think just getting to basic data literacy or data science literacy starting back in school is critical so that students coming out of high school and in college actually are able to look at sets of data, know how to work with data, and to be able to extract knowledge and potentially actionable insight from these data sets. And then to not so easily be lied or persuaded of things that are incorrect when someone is misrepresenting data to them, which we see happen all the time through politics and through the media. So basic data literacy. And then for software developers, I think learning how to take these data science or these machine learning algorithms and apply them to solve business problems to create real value for businesses in the real world.
So I have one final question.
Sure.
So this data literacy, how do you make that accessible and interesting for people? Because I find data science interesting.
Yes. Yep.
most people don't. Most people, if you said, looking at large data sets and looking at the validity of data
Yep.
and outliers, and you say statistics to people and they just go, I'm completely not interested.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about this problem quite a bit because one of the things that I do is teach courses through Pluralsight, and I have an interest in educating children about how to use data science to solve questions of interest. I think the first thing you have to do is tell stories with data. Data is generally boring unless you're a data nerd like we are, and so by being able to tell stories using data makes the data tell interesting and compelling narratives that essentially engage our interest and keep us interested in what we're learning about. There's a big movement to kind of gamify a lot of spaces that are generally not considered interesting. So I would really like to see somebody create a video game that essentially teaches basic data science principles in a fun and interactive way as well too. In fact, I built an open source tool called Data Explorer, which that was the main purpose of it, was to allow children, high school students, and college students to take a data set that was interesting to them, stuff they wanted to work with and learn about, and then project it into a two-dimensional space based upon the dimensions of the underlying data, and then tell stories or communicate to their peers what they learned from their data set by asking basic questions and then getting responses back. So hopefully other people will continue to move that ball further forward and come up with much better things than I did on my free time. So
That's cool.
Work it, make it, do it, make sense.